Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radha, Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai, Gauram Nitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Not many have joined, but I think
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. But we will start off. We will not go further. Anybody remembers what we did last week? Uday Prabhu, you were there? Hare Krishna.
1 second. 1 second. Sorry, sir.
Vishil Prabhu, you want to summarize?
Prabhu, last time it was more about how that son came into the picture. He cursed the King Parikshit. When he heard this thing while he was playing, that his father, somebody has done like this to his father, and he was very annoyed. He said it is all happened because the Krishna has already gone, and that's why all these things, these rulers, rather he used very strong words for Maharaj Parikshit, and he rather called King Parikshit as crows or watchdogs and all those things. And then he touched the water of some river there and then cursed the king that after 7 days you will die by a takshak snake.
Yeah.
And after that, he came to the ashram and saw the dead snake around the neck of his father, and he started screaming. Then his father, who was in the trance, opened his eyes and saw everything. And I think we have done up to 42. We have done last time also, and that what happened as per me. If anything else is there, you can ask.
Okay. We did up till 41, if I'm not wrong, last week.
No, we have done 42 also, sir.
Sure about it?
You wrote 41, but Prabhu did 42 also.
Achha.
Yeah, 42 we covered.
Okay. I was not available for the last part, so I don't know. Okay, fine. So any other point, Uday Prabhu, Rao Prabhu, you want to add?
More or less it is.
Yeah. So what happens after that? Meaning his father Um, so when Shringi gives the sin, and then he comes and meets his father. So you see, the main reason why this has happened is not disclosed yet by Shukadev Goswami, which is that the Lord wanted this to happen. And what is the reason behind that? We will see that. Okay. But you see the orchestration of the incidents. Parikshit Maharaj going into a jungle, which was not the first time that he had been to a jungle, right? For hunting or for whatever activities he might have gone. Getting tired, definitely it may not be the first time. Being thirsty, of course, not the first time. But then coming to a Rishi's ashram and not getting the necessary, respect or basically invitation or the general etiquettes that are supposed to be followed when you get a person in your house. Okay, this may or may not have been happened, but Parikshit Maharaj's nature was not so rash to react to such kind of incidents in this manner, which is what even he was surprised later. But the meaning he putting a dead snake who had absolutely no relevance of he being thirsty and not being received by the sage in this way. So if a person like you and me can understand that somebody is praying and we should not disturb him and we should not expect any attention from him, of course a person like Parikshit Maharaj would know very well, right? Because for us, seeing sadhus who do meditation is quite rare. But in that age, it was very much, meaning, so visible, so frequent it was. So to expect a sadhu who is actually doing meditation to give attention to him, that is actually incorrect. But why did this happen? And then the Shringi was not there at that time. He was playing with his friends. Had he been there, maybe Parikshit Maharaj could have asked him to get some water for him. But he was not there. At the time when he cursed it, Shamik Rishi was not there. So he could have actually first gone. Generally, what would happen? Let's say he is playing with his friends, and one of the friends comes to him and tells him that so and so thing has happened. Generally, we would first go and see what has happened, come to a conclusion, and then take some action. This person, based on what his friend told him, he took an action and then he came and met his father. Had he met his father would have stopped him from that curse that he gave. But all these was so orchestrated nicely for one very important objective, which we will learn over a period of next few classes. Okay. So I will
do more things. Last time Prabhu used very good words. Kali got this boy as the first occasion of Brahmanical injustice.
Yes. Prabhupada has written that in the purport. Yeah.
And secondly, this Rishi, after this Shamik Rishi, I think it is Shamik only.
Yes.
He was not happy to see the treatment of his son.
Correct.
And rather he virtually fired him. How you can do like this?
Which is what we will see in today's verses. But he did not chastise him. He did not scold him. In fact, he prayed to the Lord as to why did this happen, sort of. There is no mention by Shukadev Goswami that he scolded his son for doing that. Hare Krishna. So we will start from verse number 43 until 51, I think. 51 is the last verse in this chapter. Alakshmane naradev namni rathangapana mangalokah tadahi chaura prachuro vinanksha Tyarakshamano vivarutha vakshanat.
My dear boy, the Lord, who carries the wheel of a chariot, is represented by the monarchical regime. And when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like scattered lambs. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the monarchical regime represents the Supreme Lord, the personality of the Godhead. The king is said to be the representative of the absolute personality of the Godhead because he is trained to acquire the qualities of God to protect the living beings. The Battle of Kurukshetra was planned by the Lord to establish the real representative of the Lord, Maharaj Yudhishthir, an ideal king thoroughly trained by culture and devotional service with the marital spirit makes a perfect king. Such a personal monarchy is far better than the so-called democracy of no training and responsibility. The thieves and rogues of modern democracy seek election by misrepresentation of votes, and the successful rogues and thieves devour the mass of population. One trained monarch is far better than the hundreds of useless ministerial rogues, and it is hinted herein that by abolition of the monarchical regime like that of the Maharaj Parikshit, the mass of people become open to many attacks of the age of Kali. They are never happy in the overly advertised form of democracy. The result of such a kingless administration is described in the following verse. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So there is one word that is used for the king, which is called as Narendra. Okay. So Nara meaning man, human, and Indra meaning the best. So the king of Swarga is also called as Indra. Okay, but Indra is the position, it's not the name. Okay, so Narendra meaning the best among human beings. So Parikshit Maharaj was called as Narendra. And coincidentally, we also have equal nice prime minister whose name is also Narendra Modi. So now what happens is in one of the previous verses, it was mentioned that the fish rots from the head. So if you look at the rotting process of the fish, head will rot first and then the body will rot later, which also means that if you take that as an example, the society is represented like a human body when you look at Varnashram Dharma. So in Varnashram Dharma, the head is considered to be the people of the Brahmin caste. So Brahmanas are generally aware of the purpose of human life. They work towards it, they gather knowledge, they perform activities which will be helpful for the human society, like they perform yajna, they preach, they give knowledge, they do samskar, right? So that is what the head of the family is doing, or our head also is as important, right? If somebody cuts our hands or legs, we may not lose our life, but if somebody cuts off our head, immediately we will die. So similarly, Brahmanas, the head who represents Brahmanas in the human body, the Brahmanas also guide the society in this manner. So when the Brahman caste starts rotting, okay, they perform activities which are not oriented towards spiritual progress, then the downfall of human society starts. And that is why Prabhupada writes, a fish rots from the head. And when this deterioration of this Brahminical caste happens, then the rest of the human society falls like a pack of cards. Okay. And this is precisely what Kali did, that he entered in like a small hole in the needle. Okay. But now he has come out like a plow. So you know that saying, right? Enter like a needle and come out like a plow. Plow, you know, right? Plow is very big, which is what we use to cultivate the soil. Now, compared to a small hole or a small needle, plow is extremely big. So you go inside somebody with a very small gap, which is sufficient for that needle to enter. But when you come out like a plow which is very big, and you would have by that time destroyed everything. Okay, so that is that going into inside like a needle and coming out like a plow means. And Shringi was the kind of excuse for Kali to enter inside, which he started by picking up somebody from a Brahmin caste. Now, monarchical regime, why anybody can guess why that is better and why not the democracy like we have today? Anybody?
Prabhu, at least in the present democracy, you don't find the people of proper eligibility coming to the level of making a decision on the behalf of the country, and they do all sorts of nonsense. While if it is a monarch, it all depends on the quality of the monarch. What are his qualities, whether he's a God-fearing man or not, and accordingly the kingdom is run.
Yeah. And another point is the people who elect in the democracy kind of government, those people themselves are not sufficiently knowledgeable. Okay, so now, for example, let's say two people are standing in election. One is a very pious person. Okay, he is not bribing anybody. He is performing his work very honestly. And then there is a person who is a very corrupt person and who has given, say, 1,000 rupees for every person in the particular town or city or the constituency to give vote to him. So now the problem is the people who have taken money will vote in the favor of this corrupt person, and this guy will get elected. The other one will not get elected. So now, does it mean that these people, because it's a democracy, they have elected the right person? Definitely not. But had there been a monarch, and let's say he had two children, okay, one is a very pious person and one is a corrupt person, the monarch will decide, okay, the corrupt person should not be given the power, the pious son should get the power, and that is how the power will cascade down. And this is precisely missing in the democracy, because uh, the person who takes a decision doesn't himself have proper ethics and knowledge, and then the people who elect him also do not possess the knowledge. And that's why democracy is actually a downfall. Unfortunately, that is what is getting popularized and appreciated also worldwide. But we have a very good example. The place we are living is a monarchical regime. But we can see, because the king has the best interests of the country in his mind, that's why everything is functioning very smoothly. Now, one of the points, when Krishna says yada yada hi dharmasya, he says, dharma samsthapanarthaya, he says, he wanted the knowledge to be disseminated to the common people. He wanted Brahmanas to understand this knowledge, because of which he spoke Bhagavad Gita. But there will still be some people left who will not practice it properly, or who will stop people who are practicing it properly. Now, to protect the practicing people and to punish the people who are stopping them, there has to be somebody who has power, who has the courage, and who has the knowledge as well to discriminate what is right, what is wrong. So what Krishna did, he did not disappear after giving Bhagavad Gita knowledge to Arjuna. He ensured that the Kauravas are eliminated, the Pandavas rule the world. He established Maharaj Yudhishthir as the supreme ruler of the whole world. And after that, he left, because he knew that Maharaj Yudhishthir has the perfect knowledge, he has the perfect ethics, and he will perform his duty without any deviation. So the king is actually representing the Lord here. What when Yudhishthir was not the ruler, what the Lord wanted to do, Lord had to do it by himself. But now when he knows that Yudhishthir is capable and he will perform the duty as like the Lord himself, that's why the Lord was confident and he left. And which is what Yudhishthir carried forward in doing it. So if in the absence of the Lord, the king actually represents the Lord, because how the Lord would have functioned by himself is the way the king functions. That is why we call it as a representative of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll move on to text 44. Tadadyaha tadadya na papam upaitya nanvayam yannashtanathasya vasor vilumpakat parasparam gnanti shapanti vrunjate pashun striyo arthan purudasyavo janaha. Translation.
Translation. We are reading?
Yeah.
Or I'll read. I'll read. Translation. Translation by Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The word na, we, is very significant in this verse. The sage rightly takes the responsibility of the Brahmanas as a community for killing monarchical government and thus giving the opportunity to the so-called Democrats, who are generally plunderers of the wealth of the state subjects. The so-called Democrats capture the administrative machine without assuming responsibility for the prosperous condition of the citizens. Everyone captures the post for personal gratification, and thus, instead of one king, a number of responsible kings grow up to tax the citizens. It is foretold herein that in the absence of good monarchical government, everyone will be the cause of disturbance for others by plundering riches, animals, women, etc. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we see here that the Brahman, Shamik Rishi, he had that honesty to accept the mistake committed by his son. He had the ethics to accept the responsibility of the mistake. He had the vision to understand the impact of this mistake over the human society. So we see many good qualities about this person also, right? One of these, which we see anyway, we saw a few others previously, but one of these that it stands out now is by studying the Shastra, he could very well understand the benefit of Varnashram system. He could understand the benefit of the kings accepting the knowledge from Brahmanas, accepting the guidance from the Brahmanas, and performing the administrative activities accordingly. So today, if somebody asks us what are the benefits of Varnashram system, probably 2 or 3 we may be able to say. That's all. But if somebody asks us more questions on this one, probably we may not be able to say. But he understood it. Yeah, he did not do some engineering and MBA kind of stuff like us. He had just studied Shastra. But look at it. What is actually happening now was known to him, meaning was foretold by him 5,000 years back. Look at the power of our Shastric knowledge. And such people, ethically, morally high standards, highly knowledgeable, and being able to understand the impact of incorrect activities to the extent of what will happen 5,000 years later. That level of knowledge was there with those people. and they were actually guiding the king. Such people were guiding the king, and such kings were actually ruling. So we can imagine the how the citizens would have benefited from such kings. So one day, when Indraprastha was being constructed, people were asked to cut the trees and bring wood for the construction. And there were some people who, took more wood than the necessity. So Yudhishthir Maharaj told them at that time that we should not take what we don't need from Prakriti. Because if you take more from Prakriti now, a similar quantity of same element will be less available thousands of years later. So this is the knowledge that he had at that time, as to understand the impact of deforestation on the climate also, which people are doing PhDs and lots of R&Ds to study that impact, which he knew at that time. So that is what actually I personally liked about Shamik Rishi, that he was able to understand the impact of not living in a society with Varnashram Dharma. What are the benefits of Varnashram Dharma? He knew at that time, and he could teach people. Hare Krishna. We'll look at verse 45. Tadarya dharma praviliyate nrunam varnashramachara striyamayah tatortha kama bhiniveshitatmanam shunam kapinami varna sankarah. And it continues in this verse also.
Prabhu, you will get some background voice, please. You need to bear with that one. Hare Krishna. Translation.
No problem. Hare Krishna.
At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of a progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the caste and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will be more attracted to economical development for sense gratification. And as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. Purport. It is foretold herein that in the absence of a monarchical regime, the general mass of people will be an unwanted population like dogs and monkeys. As the monkeys are too sexually inclined and dogs are shameless in sexual intercourse, the general mass of population born of illegitimate connection will systematically go astray from the Vedic way of good manners and qualitative engagements in the castes and orders of life. The Vedic way of life is the progressive march of the civilization of the Aryans. The Aryans are progressive in Vedic civilization. The Vedic civilization's destination is to go back to Godhead, back home, where there is no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. The Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but to go towards the light of the spiritual kingdom, far beyond the material sky. The qualitative caste system and the orders of life are scientifically planned by the Lord and his representatives, the great rishis. The perfect way of life gives all sorts of instruction in things both material and spiritual. The Vedic way of life does not allow any man to be like the monkeys and dogs. A degraded civilization of sense gratification and economic development is the byproduct of a godless or kingless government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people should not therefore begrudge the poor administration they themselves elect. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
So Prabhupada actually has written in various places about the benefits of Varnashram Dharma. And he has strongly written against democracy also. And we see that, meaning whatever, leave alone Prabhupada's purport for a moment, because it has been written probably 30, 40 years back. So this current situation was not far different than what it was 30 years, 40 years back. But look at the way Shamik Rishi has mentioned 5,200 and 300 years back, what would be the state when the Brahmanas are unable to follow their etiquettes and religious principles. They fall down or fall away from the path, and the society is impacted gradually. Okay. And whatever he has written, right, the people in general will fall systematically away from the path of progressive civilization. Now, why was the previous civilization progressive and why is the current one not progressive? Any guesses on that? Who can say? We have lots of things, right? We have mobiles, telecommunications, computers, and man has gone to the moon also, right? So now, so many things. Car is there, fuel is there, electric cars are there. So many things are there now. Roads and flights, aeroplanes. So many things are there. So obviously, this civilization is progressive, right? What did those guys have at that time? They were not able to have a car also. No electricity was there. They had to use bullock carts or horses from going from one place to another. So what progressive civilization is being talked about then?
That is a spiritual one.
Yeah.
So what does it mean?
Understanding basically about the way of life and what we are here for and why we are here and what to do to reach the ultimate goal.
Correct. So
yeah,
please.
The way of living should lead us from getting away from this material life too and progress towards the spiritual life.
Correct.
So the earlier practice were guiding on that one. Now today is totally we are away from our goal.
Correct. So Prabhupada writes in this purport, the Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but go towards the light of the spiritual kingdom. So to be able to do that, one has to perform activities which do not bind oneself to the material world. So if you are able to have best of the cars, best of the bungalows, and best of the meaning spaceships and flights and aircrafts and all that, does that help us from going away from the material world permanently? If no, that means you are performing activities which will bind you to the material world. So then what is the benefit of that? So this progressive is from the perspective of getting rid of the material world, but not from the perspective of getting stuck in the material world. So if you want to remain stuck in the material world, there are hundreds of other activities which one can do. But if you want to get out, then you need to follow the instructions of Vedas, which help us go to the transcendental sky. And from that perspective, it is progressive. And precisely the reason why Bhagavad Gita is structured also in that manner. Yeah? It starts talking about karma kanda. So it doesn't talk about a sinful life. It doesn't say what you should do to remain in this material world. So the minimum he is saying is, if you cannot perform bhakti yoga or jnana yoga or karma yoga, no problem. At least do karma kanda, which will keep you in a boundary of performing activities as directed by the Vedas, although you may be doing it from a material and selfish perspective. Gradually, it will elevate you to performing selflessly. So you might perform activities initially with a selfish motive, which you will change to selfless motive. Then you will understand that, okay, just performing activity mechanically is not sufficient. We should also understand why we are performing it, which is the jnana aspect. And then we understand that just having knowledge is not sufficient. We need to have bhakti, and that will graduate us to bhakti level. So this is the path of growth, and that is why it is called as a progressive civilization, because it helps you eradicate the problems of material life, not keeping you within the material life. And Varnashram Dharma is structured in itself in such a manner that the people who have knowledge guide the people who possess less or no knowledge. People who have the administrative powers or the strength and the courage and the the skills, the fighting skills, they are the ones who protect the society. And that alone is not sufficient, because dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, these are the four principles, right? So dharma is being guided by uh, uh, brahmanas, and to help them implement those rules, the kshatriyas come in picture. Now, to be able to fulfill the material desire also, the Vedas provide you some guidance. Now, to be able to fulfill the material desires, artha is required, money is required, wherein the Vaishyas come into picture. And then if you are able to perform all of this, the society benefits, and then they reach to the level of moksha. Now, that is how the caste system was created. And if the caste system was not appropriate, then Krishna wouldn't have actually created it. In fourth chapter, in the 13th verse, he says, Chatur Varnam Maya Srishtam, Guna Karma Vibhavekam. Chatur Varnam, meaning the four Varnas and that whole system of Varnashram system, Maya Srishtam, I have created it. And based on what? Not based on bodily characteristics, that because you look black, then you are a Shudra, and because you look fair, you are a Brahman. No, nothing like that. It was Guna and Karma Vibhagashaha. It was created based on the qualities and the modes of material nature. But unfortunately, now people do not have the necessary knowledge to understand the depth of the benefits of Varnashram system, and they consider that as a social evil. The Brahmanas at those times never discriminated at a bodily level. That started a little or even far later, when Chandragupta Maurya, Arya Chanakya, and Nanda and all that were there. Okay, that also had reached to the sufficient level of degradation of the society. And in the 12th canto, I think in the 3rd or 4th or 5th chapter, Shukadev Goswami gives a prophecy of what kind of rulers will come in the next 5-10,000 years. He had mentioned the name of Nanda also, or Chandragupta in that, or not Chandragupta. Nanda was the bad one, right? So Nanda is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam in the prophecy section. Now, the point is, okay, we will talk about that in the next verse. I mean, why the knowledge aspect we'll talk about. Now, you see, one other point is two animals, dogs and monkeys, have been mentioned, and Prabhupada writes very clearly that dogs are also inclined towards sexual activity, but they are also shameless about it. You cannot expect two dogs, one female, one male, to go in a secluded place, perform their activities, and then they come out, right? You see them performing on the streets also, in open areas also. They have no shame about it. The other problem is with monkeys. So, how many of you have been able to go to Vrindavan or any place where the population of monkeys is on the higher side? So you will see the monkeys' reproduction rate is very high. Okay, that is not because of, like fish and eggs. A fish can give hundreds of eggs and create hundreds of fish. Monkeys are also mammals, but because their proclivity to sexual activity is very high, okay, the reproduction rate is very, very high among them. And when you go to Vrindavan, you will see thousands and thousands and thousands of monkeys are there in every place. And this is there true in various other areas also. At Ramtek and all that also, this place is full of monkeys, and it is precisely because of their inclination towards sexual activity. Now, what happens is, although the example is given only from a dog and monkey perspective, but sex is just one way of representing a material activity. But if you look at material activity as a whole and not just discriminate between what kind of activity it is, but still the same verse is applicable also here again to say that people will be interested to perform material activities, and they will be performing it in such a high quantity that the inclination will further increase, the sinful tendency will further increase, and more people will get attracted to it. On top of that one, it will be done shamelessly, which also means that today, when we ask somebody, what is your goal of life? So people shamelessly say, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a businessman, I want to become an engineer, I want to become this, that, I want to become a CFO of a company or whatever it is. There absolutely is no knowledge they possess about the objective of human life. And in fact, if somebody says that I want to become a saintly person, or I want to become a brahmachari or a sannyasi, people will laugh at him. So that shamelessness in the society has come up completely to be shameful about spiritual progress and be shamelessly proud about material progress. So you can link both of them in this manner. Hare Krishna. Let's move on to verse 46. Any question so far?
No, Prabhu.
Dharmapalo narapatihi satu samrat bruhachruva sakshan mahabhagavato rajarshi hayamedhayat shuttut shramayuto dino naivasmachhap marhati.
The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first class devotee of the personality of the Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. After explaining the general codes relating to the royal position and asserting that the king can do so wrong and therefore is never to be condemned, the sage Shamik wanted to say something about Emperor Parikshit specifically. The specific qualification of Maharaj Parikshit is summarized herein. The king, even calculated as a king only, that was most celebrated as a ruler who administered the religious principles of the royal order. In the Shastras, the duties of all castes and orders of society are prescribed. All the qualities of a Kshatriya mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 18.43 were present in the person of the emperor. He was also a great devotee of the Lord and a self realized soul. Cursing such a king when he was tired and fatigued with hunger and thirst was not at all proper. Shamik Rishi thus admitted from all sides that Maharaj Parikshit was cursed most unjustly. Although all the Brahmins were aloof from the incident, still for the childish action of a Brahman boy, the whole world situation was changed. Thus, Rishi Shamik, a Brahman, took responsibility for all deterioration of the good orders of the world.
One of the
Hare
things,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. One of the things we can see that the Brahmanas, their tongue had such a power that even a 7-year-old boy, by reciting certain mantras, could actually cause a big havoc in the society. That, the death of Maharaj Parikshit, the downfall of Brahmanical society, the downfall of overall human society, so many things. Just a 7-year-old boy. So it actually, relates to uh, incorrect application of knowledge. So which also means that when a person has knowledge, he should have the necessary awareness of where to apply it and where not to apply it. So you see, sometimes there are some people who have lot of power, but they don't have the necessary means to implement that. For example, let's say, not able to think of anything right now. Let's say a businessman. So he has a lot of money power, but he does not have the administrative power to implement some decisions which can benefit him. And some person may have lot of administrative power but not money power. So again, he is not able to. But imagine a person who has money power as well as administrative power. What can he do? He can do absolutely anything. Now, what he will do, whether it is good or bad, only depends on his knowledge and his intention. So if a very saintly, pious person has huge amount of money and huge administrative power, we can be sure that he will implement it for the right purpose. But if a corrupt person has huge money and lot of administrative power, then he can only misuse it, right? So that is why when the Lord wants to destroy something, he will give power into the hands of people who have the other required powers, right? Like money, for example. But when he does not want something to be destroyed, he will not give both the powers in the hand. If a person has huge amount of anger, okay, let's say, for example, some person has done lot of damage to, say, us, for example. Okay, and we think, अरे उसको ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, उसको वैसा होना चाहिए. Okay, so what will happen then? If we had the power, we would actually go and even destroy that person. But because the Lord does not want, and with that his destruction, even we will be destroyed. Yeah, the government will not leave us. So because the Lord does not want us to be destroyed and he does not want the other person also to be destroyed, he may give us anger, but he will not give us the necessary power to implement the incorrect thoughts that arise from our anger. But this is one important point to understand, कि एक बंदे के पास, let's say there is a street fight happening. Okay, एक बंदा है, he is he becomes angry in a very, in a fraction of a second. And उसके पास, he is like, say, 150 kilo का आदमी है, उसके पास बहुत strength, बहुत power है. So what is the probability that he will misuse his anger and power? Very, very high. But let's say there is a very thin, skinny person, 3 feet tall only, okay, and उसको बहुत anger आता रहेगा. So what is the probability that he will cause a very high level of destruction? Very low. So if the Lord does not want destruction to happen, he will not give power to such an angry person. And this is precisely what the Lord has done here. Okay, he has given the power, the necessary knowledge to a boy like Shrungi, because he wanted the downfall to be initiated. Okay, and why? We will see that Prabhupada writes in the purports many times, especially in the 19th chapter. Okay, so now we will link this to one other incident also. How many of you have heard of Lord Ram killing a person who was chanting Vedas? Anybody?
No, Prabhu, we have not heard.
Rakesh
No.
Prabhu, Uday
No,
Prabhu?
yeah, I'm not.
Those
Acha. So when especially if you are in the company of people who hate Sanatan Sanskriti, who are hell-bent upon defaming Sanatan Sanskriti, so they talk about certain key incidents that have happened in our history, about which they do not possess proper knowledge. So one of them is Krishna and his Ras Leela. Okay, because they do not understand the depth of the word love, which is transcendental, they consider Ras Leela as a mundane activity. So they talk ill about it. They also mention that if Krishna was God, why couldn't he stop the killing of so many lakhs and lakhs of peoples in the war of Kurukshetra? Why couldn't he exert his pressure and create, peace in the society? So again, they do not possess that knowledge. Then some people talk about Brahma, Lord Brahma, running after his daughter for sexual intercourse. They do not understand the reasons behind it. Okay. Then Lord Ram, they say that, how can God basically put his wife under such a stress of giving pariksha and asking her to go sati and then rejecting her and all that. So they do not understand that there was a curse of certain Rishi for Lord Ram, meaning Vishnu, and Lakshmi Mata to get separated for 14 years. They do not know that. Okay. Or even if they know, they would purposely try and avoid that being spoken about. So one of these such incidents is Lord Ram killing a person who was chanting Vedas. They only make this half statement but do not speak it completely. Now, the actual incident that happened was this person was, meaning it was not because of his bodily characteristics that Lord Ram didn't want him to chant, but he was of Shudra in nature. Okay. He was hanging himself upside down on a tree while chanting Vedas, which is not the right way to chant. Okay. And he was chanting them without complete proper purification. So when we chant mantras, we take a bath, we do our the purification activities, and purification means not the bodily purification, but the prior to deity worship, we do certain activities. Some mantras are to be chanted. We chant that, and then we start our worship. Okay, all that is supposed to be done from the Pratah Puja perspective, the morning puja, and then we initiate chanting our mantra. So there are certain rules, like if you have to go to a school, you don't just wake up from the bed and go to the school, right? You take a bath, you wear the school uniform, you wear the tie, you comb your hair, the shoes are proper, the clothes are ironed, you reach on time, you take the books with you. So many things are there. So there are certain rules and etiquettes to be followed while being in the school. So similarly, when you chant mantras also, there are certain etiquettes. That person had completely flouted all of this. The time, place, circumstance, his purification, his cleanliness, his posture, and everything was this one. And when such a person chants the mantras, it actually creates negative effect of the mantras. So Lord Ram didn't want this practice to be applied by others in the society, which would have caused a bigger havoc in the society had people considered him to be chanting in the right manner, or being accepting that it can be chanted in any manner, and people performing it would have actually caused a bigger disturbance to the society. That's why Lord killed him, so that people should understand that there is a punishment applied to such incorrect chanting, and it should not impact the society at large. They do not understand the bigger picture. Now, a similar situation has happened here, that when Shringi, the boy of Shamik Rishi, when he got these mantras, this knowledge, he did not have the knowledge of where to apply the mantras and where not to apply the mantras, how to control the anger before applying the mantras. And these mantras should not be applied based on whims and fantasies. It should be applied based on proper understanding of the situation and the impact of the mantras. And then it should be chanted with a proper calm mind, and for the benefit of the person for whom you are chanting the mantras. All these factors were completely ignored by Srinivas, and out of anger, out of lack of sense and mind control, he spoke those mantras. So this is one important point that we should understand, that when the Lord provides us something as a strength, not more, not less, there are two primary reasons for that. One reason is he has not given us lesser strength because he wants us to use this strength in the right manner. And he has not given us more strength, that is because he knows we will not be capable of utilizing that extra strength in the right manner. So the quantity of strength, the quantity of knowledge, whatever quantity of characteristics are there, whatever we have received is actually for our benefit, not more, not less. Hare Krishna. We'll also see why the Lord used Shringi, the 7-year-old boy, as a medium to communicate the curse. Why didn't he use an elderly person? We will see that in this verse now. Apapeshu svabhrutyeshu balena buddhina papam krutam tad bhagavan sarvatma kshantum arhati. Yeah.
Purport, translation by Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
Then the Rishi prayed to all the pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Everyone is responsible for his own action, either pious or sinful. Rishi Samika could foresee that his son had committed a great sin by cursing Maharaj Parikshit, who deserved to be protected by the Brahmanas. For he was a pious ruler and completely free from all sins, because of his being a first-class devotee of the Lord. When an offense is done unto the devotee of the Lord, it is very difficult to overcome the reaction. The Brahmanas, being at the head of the social orders, are meant to give protection to their subordinates and not to curse them. There are occasions when a Brahmana may furiously curse a subordinate, Kshatriya or Vaishya, etc. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, there was no grounds, as already explained. The foolish boy had done it out of sheer vanity in being a Brahmana's son, and thus he became liable to be punished by the law of God. The Lord never forgives a person who condemns his pure devotee. Therefore, by cursing a king, the foolish Shringi had committed not only a sin but also the greatest offense. Therefore, the Rishi could foresee that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save his boy from the sinful act. He therefore directly prayed for pardon from the Supreme Lord, who alone can undo a thing which is impossible to change. The appeal was made in the name of a foolish boy who had developed no intelligence at all. A question may be raised herein that since it was the desire of the Lord that Parikshit Maharaj be put into the awkward position so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was a Brahmana's son made responsible for the offensive act? The answer is that the offensive act was performed by a child only so that he could be excused very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised why the Brahmana community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affairs, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana. That Varaha Purana, that the demons who acted immensely towards the personality of Godhead but were not killed by the Lord were allowed to take birth in the families of Brahmanas to take advantage of the age of Kali. the all merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their births in the families of pious Brahmanas so that they could progress towards salvation. But the demons, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misused the Brahmanical culture due to being puffed up by the vanity in being Brahmanas. The typical example is the son of Samika Rishi, and all the foolish sons of Brahmanas are warned hereby not to become a foolish as Sringi and to be always a god against the demonic qualities which they had in their previous births. The foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord, but others who may not have a father like Samika Rishi will be put into great difficulty if they misuse the advantages obtained by the birth in a Brahmana family. Jai
Yeah.
Shri Hare Krishna.
So now we see, especially with the perspective of Varaha Puran brought in here. So when the deterioration of the society happens, okay, somebody is being picked up, okay, to cause or to initiate the destruction. Now these people are in the garb of a saintly person who perform foolish or inhuman activities, and they, because they are, because externally they are considered to be saintly persons, that's why people follow them and then the people fall down. Now because this video we record and we upload it on YouTube also, I'm not going to name some people here, but it is not a kind of a secret anymore that how India's destruction was caused by certain political leaders who were considered to be saintly, and but they were foolish, completely foolish, because of which Sanatan Dharma had a great downfall because of such foolish people. And we are feeling the repercussions even today also because of those people's foolish activities, who were considered to be saintly and Mahatmas, but they were actually foolish from within. Now, Shamik Rishi was also kind of a similar person. It is although not mentioned here, but specifically about Shringi, but in general it is mentioned that in the Varaha Puran that there were certain people who were demoniac in nature and they maintained some kind of enmity with the Supreme Lord. Now, what the Lord does is he achieves two objectives in a single action. He gave them birth in a Brahminical society, in a Brahminical family. So it gave them chance to elevate themselves by performing proper activities, the pious activities. But he also wanted the downfall to happen via these people. So because of which they were born in the Brahminical family, they perform demoniac activities because of their nature, their guna, being not being appropriate. And that activity caused the downfall, but they, because they were in the family of Brahmanas, they performed pious activities also, and that helped them further elevate also. So sometimes we see people and we ask, अरे ये बंदा इसका सो एंड सो का बेटा होने के बावजूद हाउ कैन ही परफॉर्म सो एंड सो एक्टिविटी. So it's a big surprise, right, for us. Like sometimes there may be a very saintly person, but his son may be a very kind of, a nonsense person. So this is the reason behind that. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, if I'm not wrong, verse number 15, verse number 5, he says, Daivi sampad vimokshaya nibandhaya surimata mashucha sampadam daivim abhijatosi pandava. He says these, Prabhupada mentioned, right? It's very important. Let's see, read this. No? It's very nice actually. Prabhupada writes, that these qualities are carried over by people from their previous birth itself. Okay. Lord Krishna encouraged Arjun by telling him that he was not born with demoniac qualities. His involvement in the fight was not demoniac because he was considering the pros and cons. He was considering whether respectable persons such as Bhishma and Don should be killed or not. So he was not acting under the influence of anger, false prestige, or harshness. Therefore, he was not of the quality of the demons. Okay. Sorry, was it number 5 or number 4? Sorry, it is verse number 4. It is. Okay. In this verse, the royal road to hell is described. Okay. What are the qualities of people who are in the mode of the power of demoniac nature? Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. Okay. So he's saying in this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. So we talked about it. A person born in a Brahmin family, they want to show that they are very nice and pious people, but internally they carry the nature of a demon. They are always arrogant or proud in possessing some type of education or so much wealth. They desire to be worshipped by others and demand respectability, although they do not command respect. Over trifles, they become very angry, speak harshly, not gently. They do not know what should be done, what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire and do not recognize any authority. Now comes the point that we were talking about. These demoniac qualities are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers. As they grow, they manifest these inauspicious qualities. So it comes to them from their previous birth. The moment they enter into the body, the soul enters into the body, all these man, buddhi, ahankar, and the kama vasana and everything are brought in from their previous life into the new body. And that is when, meaning they are born with such qualities. And when they grow, the qualities develop, the surrounding nature also becomes conducive for them to display these qualities, and then they start manifesting these inauspicious qualities. So this is basically the link between a person born in a pious family but performing sinful or unethical activities. Why does this happen? Because he has not taken over the culture of that family into himself. Instead, he is influenced by the demoniac qualities that he has carried over from the previous life. So the key point here is that this Brahman could also be one of the many Brahmanas or one of the many demons of those times who took the body of a Brahman, but via him, the Lord got this action performed. So now it is like, multiple things achieved in a single action. The demon had been given a chance to elevate himself. The demon performed an action which was true to his nature. So when he repents on that one, he will basically be elevated. The father has performed, meaning asked for forgiveness also, so that the demon doesn't suffer much. So that means his route to, or the road to Bhagwan also is shortened. Parikshit Maharaj gets the curse because of which he performs the activity what is mentioned in chapter 19. And the overall Brahman society is also given a warning signal. Some downfall of the society has to be triggered. So that is also triggered. So you can see the whole orchestration of this event is happened in such a manner that everybody benefits out of it. Now, another point is there are times wherein, the Lord, the devotee of the Lord has to undergo some tribulations. Okay. So now this may seem to be, यार ये बंदा इतना devotee है, but फिर भी उसको क्यों तकलीफ हो रहा है? So Lord does not protect the devotee, ऐसा आ सकता है मन में, right? But that is not the case. The Lord again is trying to achieve multiple objectives. So there are times when a devotee maintains some mentality of some, either it could be a sinful mentality which he may not convert that into an action, but mentality hai andar. Or he may have some mentality of enjoying some material stuff. वो भी हो सकता है. To eradicate such kind of mentality, then the Lord purposely creates some incidents in that devotee's life by which he learns and he corrects himself. Sometimes it may so happen that the Lord gets certain action done for a devotee, although he doesn't deserve it at all, neither from a mentality perspective, nor from a karma perspective, but it actually helps as a learning for the rest of the society. But when certain things happen to a devotee, the Lord also becomes, intolerant towards such stuff. Like, for example, Durvas Rishi had was about to curse Maharaj Ambarish, and he was about to punish him. So because of which he plucked out one hair from his head and he created a demon out of it, and that demon was about to kill him. That is when Sudarshan Chakra came into picture, and Sudarshan Chakra stopped that demon, and in fact it burnt and killed him. And it was about to do the same thing to Durvas Rishi also, but Durvas Rishi ran here and there, took shelter of Vishnu, and that is when Vishnu told him that you need to go and ask for forgiveness, ask for Maharaj Ambarish to forgive yourself. And when he did that, then Sudarshan Chakra was silent. This you will see in the ninth or seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I think. So the Lord basically ensures that he protects his devotees from any kind of such tribulations or any such demoniac people. So in this case also, although Shringi Rishi performed these kind of activities, the Lord's intention was not to get Shringi punished, but basically protect Maharaj Parikshit and protect the human society so that Bhagavatam can be spoken, which is actually a good covering and good protection for the human society. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll go a little bit fast. There are 4 more verses and only 15 minutes left. तिरस्कृता विप्रलब्धा शप्ता क्षिप्ता हता अपि नास्य तत्प्रतिकुर्वन्ति तद्भक्ताः प्रभवो अपि. Translation.
Hare Krishna. Translation. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Purport. Rishi Samika also knew that the Lord does not forgive a person who has committed an offense at the feet of devotee. The Lord can only give direction to take shelter of the devotee. He thought within himself that if Maharaja Parikshit would counter curse the boy, he might be saved. But he knew also that a pure devotee is careless about worldly advantages or reverses. As such, the devotees are never inclined or counteract personal defamation, curses, negligence, etc. As far as such things are concerned in personal affairs, the devotees do not care for them. But in the case of their being performed against the Lord and his devotees, then the devotees take very strong action. It was personal affair, and therefore Samika Rishi knew that the king would not take counteraction. Thus, there was no alternative than to place an appeal to the Lord for the immature boy. It is not that only the Brahmanas are powerful enough to award curses or blessings upon the subordinates. The devotee of the Lord, even though he may not be a Brahmana, is more powerful than a Brahmana. But a powerful devotee never misuses the power for personal benefit. Whatever power the devotee may have is always utilized in service towards the Lord and his devotees only. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Any curse you remember given by a devotee of the Lord to somebody? one very
Narad Muni, I think.
yeah, Narad Muni cursed whom?
This thing, no, Nalla Kuvera and
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Yeah, exactly the same one I was about to speak. So Narad Muni is a devotee. He cursed the sons of Kuber, Nala Kuber and Manigriva. Okay. But he cursed them not because they did not pay respect to him, but he cursed them so that that curse benefits them and Krishna will be able to come and give them salvation. So the devotee, if something happens to them, are not bothered about it. As Prabhupada rightly mentions, they are callous about it. What happens to them, what doesn't happen to them. They are only interested in will this help them in terms of spiritual progress. And if at all they curse them, it could be because either they have done some mistake towards the Lord or some other devotee, and they should not repeat that, because if they do repeat it, it is going to be detrimental to their spiritual progress. So that's why in the Manu Smriti also, if a person makes a mistake which deserves a kind of a strictest punishment, then such a person was subjected to death. That so the Manu recommended this punishment not because Manu was a sadistic person, that he would have enjoyed seeing people getting killed by one another. He recommended this punishment so that when the body is destroyed, that at least will stop that person from committing more serious offenses. And that if he commits a serious offense, he will have to suffer more and more and more. So it is actually a kind of a blessing that a death punishment is being awarded, because at least with that he will stop committing additional sinful activities. So when the devotee curses somebody, it's also beneficial for that person because it helps them stop that inappropriate activities and start them on the path of bhakti. But the devotee, when something wrong happens to himself, then he takes absolutely, he doesn't consider that at all as an offense. He ignores that completely. And Shamik Rishi was confident about it. He knew that because it was done against Maharaj Parikshit directly, Maharaj Parikshit will not bother about counter cursing the boy. So when one person cursed the second and the second person cursed the first one, a counter curse, then both are actually relieved from the inappropriate activity. So that's why it is said that when somebody says something wrong to you or does something wrong to you, if you become angry, then the mistake, the sin is shared by both the people. But if one person completely ignores it, does not become angry at all, then the 100% reaction goes to the other person. So that's why it is said that don't become angry. You are actually inviting more trouble by becoming angry. Hare Krishna. Iti putra krutaghena sonutapto mahamunihi swayam viprakrito rajnya naivagham tadachintayat.
The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit garlanding the sage with a dead snake was not at all a very serious offense, but Shringi cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only, therefore is to be deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse offered to him by a foolish Brahman. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation, and by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Sukdev Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Samik, and his son Shringi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person.
So
Hare
which
Krishna.
basically highlights why Shringi was chosen to perform this activity, so that he can be forgiven easily. So a sin committed by a child less than 12 years old, okay, it does not carry the same punishment as the adult, if an adult were to conduct the sin. Do you remember any such incident anywhere happened before?
The
So,
rape case, yeah.
sorry.
You're talking in the Puranas or now?
Yeah, in the Puran, there is one incident um, where a child less than 12-year-olds had committed a sin, and related to that. So there was one Rishi called as Manduka Rishi. So he was a small child, and at that time he had taken a straw of grass, and he had pierced it into the eye of an ant or a big ant or some small insect, something like that. When he left his body and went to, meaning, he was taken to Yamalok. He was surprised to go there, and when he asked Yamraj as to why am I brought here, he said, because you did so and so activity when you were a 5 year or 7 year old boy, and that's why you are being given a punishment. So Manduka Rishi, who himself was very knowledgeable, he told Yamaraj at that time that a sin committed by a child is always ignored. It is not considered to be sin. Do you not know this? So you're incorrect in giving this punishment to me. And that in the hell, he said that I am cursing you, that because of this incorrect sin, the punishment that you are giving me, you are forced to take birth on the Mrutyulok, on the earthly planet. Do you know who was that
I
person?
think he was Vidur Prabhu.
Yes, correct. So Vidur, he himself is Dharmaraj. Dharmaraj is Yamaraj, and he was the same person. So here also it's the same thing. The Lord orchestrated in such a manner so that the child can be forgiven, and otherwise it would have been difficult for somebody to get rid of such a foolish activity which caused the downfall of a pure devotee. Hare Krishna. Now just two verses are remaining. We can do it quickly.
No, only one Prabhu.
No, 51 hai na? Oh, only
Nahi,
one.
sir.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Prabhu. प्रायशः साधवो लोके परै परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजिताः न व्यथन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यत आत्मा गुणाश्रयः. One moment. Sorry, that vacuum was going on inside. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in the worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystic and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystic aim at preserving the all-pervading super soul and the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahmana, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distress and happiness are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee and a rishi was a mystic. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will.
Yeah.
Thus, this is the
Please.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare
Right.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So with this, we finished the 50th chapter. And going forward, we will understand why this was orchestrated. Meaning, I'm sure you all know about it, that the Lord wanted Bhagavatam to be spoken. So he had to orchestrate that incident, for which he takes this as a excuse. Okay, but then the question can come up, if Bhagavatam were to be spoken, it could have been spoken without giving the curse also, right? Shukadev Goswami could have met Parikshit Maharaj, he would have spoken Bhagavatam and all would have been very nice. So what do you think could be the reason that he made such an incident happen, after which Bhagavatam was spoken? Any guesses? No? So today in Kali Yuga, we consider that we have, at least 20, 30, 40 years of life available with us more. So we think, nahi, abhi fir hum log, let us enjoy materially first, and then let us focus on the spiritual aspect. For Parikshit Maharaj, although 7 days, but he knew that he will be dying after 7 days. हमें तो ये भी पता नहीं है, we can die even the next moment also. So for people like us, the Lord is giving a message that Parikshit Maharaj at least had 7 days with him. You do not even know whether you will have 7 seconds in your life. So when that person utilizes the 7 days completely, we should be even more careful how we utilize the remaining time. The devotee Parikshit Maharaj, he was saved by Lord Krishna himself. So it was guaranteed that Parikshit Maharaj will go back to Krishna at the end of his life. For us, we don't know that. We have performed such activities which will take us few more lifetimes to reach to Krishna. So we have to be even more careful and even protect our time and utilize that time in the service of Krishna as much as possible. Hare Krishna. So with this, we end 18th chapter, and only one last chapter is remaining in this particular canto. I think, 19 chapters. No? Yeah, correct, 19. So now Shukadev Goswami will appear in the next chapter, and then we will see how things unfold and which lead into the second canto. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you. Any
Hare Krishna,
questions? It's like this is a basic philosophy.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
See you. Hare Krishna.